My name is Safa Mogharebi, and I'm an SIE from Germany, holding this first webinar for you. Thanks everybody for joining this session. Hope you are all healthy and well off. And even though the coronavirus is changing our lives rapidly, I hope you are all healthy. Let's go on, and today I want to talk about the graphical user interface of our new RPC Connect software launching next year. This graphical user interface is based on a so-called document manager model, and its Windows environment are referred to as views. So every time if I talk about views or document manager model, I'm briefly talking about the graphical user interface. Here's a brief outline of our first webinar. We will talk about the major changes which a standard RPC Pro user might miss if the software is used as usual. So if you guys get the software, don't need to be afraid of working with the software. You can directly switch from RPC Pro into RPC Connect and feel familiar with the software, but you might miss important features and options we added to the software, which increase, as Cody said, the lab efficiency a lot. So the first thing we want to talk about is the changes of the control panel in RPC. Then we talk about switching the stages. Stages are the applications you know from RPC Pro, like setup, model, analyze, simulate, etc. Then we will talk about the docking of the views and the layout, so how we can create our own lab or our own view in RPC Connect now. Then we talk about any improvements which come along with the new graphical user interface. And last, we will talk about the Project Explorer functionalities to make you guys aware of the new functions, which will help you to edit your data and have a look at it really, really efficiently. Okay, let's start with the graphical user interface here. What is the main idea of creating a new graphical user interface? Here's what we think, what our customers expect from our new software. So our principle here is we want to make sure that the operators across the applications have all the same options and standards and know what to expect. Currently in RPC Pro, you're searching for a lot of features which are necessary to be on the page which you're currently working on. But the problem is you need to be, let's say, experienced to find these options, deactivate them, activate them to work really efficiently. And this is what we want to change with the new graphical user interface. Furthermore, we want to try to guide the unexperienced people through the new software. So we have implemented the so-called wizards, which we will see in a minute. And these wizards, they will guide you through the software and allow you to set every step you need to take care of while using a separate stage. So for example, we have a model wizard. In model, you need to define your FRF, your drive amplitudes, your shapes, etc. And this wizard is somehow a kind of guidance which leads you going step by step through all these functions to set up everything you need to run your first FRF and then invert it. Okay, in general, we expect that these wizards will help us to accomplish almost all needs within the software. So this is not, let's say, working in RPC Pro quite nice these times. This is what we try to improve. Okay, then the next thing is that MTS has improved the software handling a lot. So here you can see a small window which shows that this is a kind of environment we created here. On the left top here you see the data explorer, here you see the statistics window, and here on the right you see the time history plotter. The next thing what we are going to talk about in our webinar here is about general grip improvement. So we expect that you guys think our new software will bring, of course, drag and drop, filter functions, copy, place, refill, whatever a new software might carry along, what you expect will be implemented in that software, and we will have a brief look at that. The next thing is we implemented a kind of quick search feature. So if you press the button CTRL+T, you will get a kind of quick launch, which enables, for example, in this case, to search for your tools. So if I type in CNH, it will offer me all the functions or all the tools which are related to these letters here. In this case, channel extract, for example. Another thing is the control panel, which was really a disturbing thing, and I would say let's start with that one. to get a kind of overview of the new windows of RPC Connect, and then we will carry along. So as you guys can remember, the most annoying thing, or one of the most annoying things in RPC Pro, was the control panel. You were always locked in that window and you were not able to see everything which is behind this window. So let's get everybody on the same page. I just opened the RPC Pro here, and then we go to the control panel that we are making sure that everybody knows what I'm talking about. So here's the control panel, where you load, drive, and stop your test, etc. So it's an important window. If I place it here and just open any tool, let's say we go in the inverse tool and hit enter, the inverse tool will open up, but now I can't click away and move the control panel anymore. So if I try to set any control bands or something similar, I'm faced with the problem that this little window is really disturbing. So what you need to do is to press cancel, shift this window away, or just close it and reopen your inverse tool to be, let's say, efficient and see whatever you want to try to type in this tool settings here. So this was really disturbing in RPC Pro. So what we did here to get a better overview and to make it easier for you guys to work with the software and get rid of this problem, we put the control panel directly on top of the software. So here on the right corner, you see the overview of the new RPC window. And here on top of the window, it is the new control panel is added, and it is always placed there. So it has a fixed place now. And we added a lot of new features and a lot of new buttons here, which will try to get rid of the 793 surface in total. So our intent is to do the same with RPC Connect as we are doing with our other software packages. We try to get rid of the 793 surface so that you can start everything more just using RPC Connect and not popping up the 793 surface to work with. So we want to try to make these buttons, which are here, like park and ride, the master span, and so on. We want to, this is the intent, to put that on the control panel as well. And of course, HSMs and HPU as well, so that you guys can start everything from RPC Connect. Currently, it is added a button which is called attach to controller and detach to controller. So we made two separate buttons that you can see what the current stage is and do not have to pop up the 793 surface to see if still RPC has the control. The next thing is here you see any interlocks which are currently taking place or in our config still available. With number 4, you can replace these interlocks. Number 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, these are familiar buttons like play, pause, reset, stop, and then pause at the end of a drive. And number 10 is really new here. So in this case, if you hover with your mouse over the 90% here, you will see which drive file is currently played out. So this is one improvement which we did on the graphical user interface side of RPC Connect to guide you guys through the software a little bit easier. We just talked about the separate controller button function. So we think this is really necessary. And even if you create any setup or if you want to detach a controller, you can press these buttons right away, which are always on top available for the software here. Okay, another thing which has improved. Let me stop a second here. Any questions so far here? Not that I run through all the presentation and questions after questions are waiting for me later on. Paul, Cody, any questions so far?
No questions yet, Safa.
Sounds good. Okay, another thing which has improved is the way the user can switch between the stages or application switch. So we call them nowadays stages. We're maybe familiar with the term applications. When you press an RPC Pro, the setup button, you work with setup, then close the setup window again. The popping window of RPC Connect would just of RPC Pro would just pop up, and this was happening with every stage you opened and closed. So now in RPC Connect we use a kind of tab function. So you have setup, analyze, model, simulate. You click on every tab you want to have. For example, if I click now on test, it will open test. If I click on setup, of course, it will open setup functions then. And you can switch by that while just using the software without getting this annoying popping window. As you guys may see, the acquire stage here is gone. So acquire is not anymore a part of RPC Connect. there was not enough usage to carry forward to RPC Connect release 1, so we got rid of that. And what I wanted to add as well is that we have an make active option still available. So if you're working in RPC Connect in the Project Explorer and you click right, make active, you can still use this function as well. So if you were not the guys who were switching between the stages while closing and opening the applications, of course, you can still use the make active function, which is available in RPC Connect as well. Okay, in RPC Pro, you were always faced with searching your windows. So sometimes you shifted all the windows in an area you expect them to be, but nonetheless, they were somehow gone. So how did we solve the problem of having these jumbling windows, or we call it so-called floating windows? So if a window is not docked anywhere, we call them floating windows. In this case, we invented a kind of feature which is called guide diamond. So these little arrows which you see here, this is the guide diamond functionality. So while grabbing a window and pressing the CTRL button, you will see this little functionality here, and this enables you a lot of options. We had some problems in the last webinars to demonstrate that. So I recorded a video to show you guys what the functionality does, because it's somehow not available or visible in the WebEx. So I will just play out the video and then comment during that. So if you see here, for instance, I grabbed the Simulate Wizard window here. Now I press the CTRL button and the guide diamond will appear. So here's the guide diamond, which you see, and the arrows are always coming to a position where you can dock the window. So if I hover with the mouse over any of these arrows, the place where the window will be set will turn blue. So let's have a look what happens. So if I go here, it will turn blue. So if I release the mouse now here in that area, the Simulate Wizard, which is the current window, will be attached to the left side exactly in that area where you see RPC is marking it in blue. So appropriate with the other arrows, so you can put window in window, you can sort it wherever you want and create your own personal lab. So now it's released, the Simulate window is docked here, down here, and you can use that while you are working. So if you undock it again and float it and tap it in the middle of the guide diamond here, in this case, you can tap the windows. So tapping means that if I release the mouse, now we got a separate tab here. So each tab can be clicked and you have the full view of the window. So if I go to the Map Explorer, for example, or Statistics Explorer, and then back to the Simulate Wizard, you will see always the full part of the window, which helps you to have an efficient way of looking at your files. So another thing is you can create user-defined layouts. So I must give you a comment on that. Each application or each stage has a separate layout function. So if you are in test, you can create your own lab. If you are in model, you can create your own lab, and for setup, analyze, etc., appropriate. And now the question is, how can I, let's say, create my lab and bring it on another computer? So let's say this is the example. I like to have the Data Explorer here on the left, the Time Explorer on the right, and the statistics here left down in the test module, for instance. So if we're in the test station, I decided for that one, and I'm familiar with that and want to work on another computer with that, I just can click on Export Views, bring it to another computer, and then import it and just work right away with that. So it's not in a way that you have a kind of user which you click on. It's really just about loading and unloading your windows. And you can do that in each stage to feel familiar and work with without disturbing anybody or changing the windows and somebody is asking, hey, where did you put my control panel, or where is my Data Explorer gone? So this is the benefit which comes with the new user layout as well. Another really nice feature implemented in the software are the dock and undock functions and the pin and tap windows. So we just briefly talked about the tapping of the windows, which you saw when we had the guide diamond, placing the window in the middle. So you can click on these tabs to open any window. Another way of working efficiently with your tools or with your views, so to speak, you can tap them, you can pin them on the left here. So pinned windows are windows which will be based on this side of the window. Once you click on them, they will open, show up completely. Another click will hide them again. Let's go through an example and have a look here. So I open the new RPC Connect software. The first question is, of course, what language? I think we choose this time for English. Let's go for English, yeah. And then we create a new project. Let's say webinar, and then 29th, 4th of April. Hit enter. So there you go. Here's the software. Let's just switch, for example, to the model stage here. I just click on that little tab here and model will occur. So this is a layout which comes along from MTS as a standard view. So Project Explorer is placed here. But if you say, okay, I don't like the Project Explorer to work with it on this side, I grab it. So now it's in the floating stage. I can do whatever I want to do with that window. And then now if I press the CTRL button, I think unfortunately you can't see the guide diamond now. But let's say I want to tap it next to the model wizard. So it goes here. Now the Project Explorer is tapped to the next to the model wizard. If I'm not happy with that, I grab that one out and say, okay, I want to have it tapped here, let's say in the Time Explorer, time history plotter next to it. So it goes here. I can decide wherever I want to have it. So if I want to, let's say, work with the window and say, okay, this is the way I like to have it placed on the left side here, I can maximize it here with the button, work in the Project Explorer as long as I want, and click again on the dock window. The dock window will place the Project Explorer in an area where it was docked the first time or docked from the user specific one. So this one, of course, will minimize the window, this one maximize, and here's the pin window, which I said. So if I click on pin, my Project Explorer will move to the left. So now if I click on the pinned window, it will appear completely. Once again, clicking will hide the window again. So if I like to work with the software in this way, I can do this as well. Another thing is if you're not happy with the docking, undocking, pinning of the windows, and you want to work like an RPC Pro user, which is of course not our intent here, you can just grab the window and then say, okay, let's work with the window as usual in floating mode. With that, you will get the problems, or let's say not the problem, but you will get several windows here. So let's take an example here. I have a time Project Explorer opened here. I open another one and then say another one. It will lead to a lot of windows coming up here. Project Explorer 1, 2, and 3. If I dock these windows and say, okay, this Project Explorer should go here. The other Project Explorer, let's say, should go on that side here, on the right side. Now the windows will reduce and reduce and reduce as long as I work with this locked function here. So now you got one separate window here with all your functions added. And now you guys will ask, oh, is it now possible to have multi-displays added? Of course, you can extend this window and work with the window and window docking and tapping functions as well on a separate display, on a second display. Okay, yeah, to summarize this here, I forgot to mention the little gearbox here. So the gearbox here will enable you to save all the settings which you made in any tool, in any place. You can save them, load them again on another computer. So let's go just for a brief example to complete that one here as well. So if I open, let's say, the header modification tool, now I press Ctrl and T, the quick launch menu comes. I can just type in some numbers, some letters, and it will offer me the header modification tool. While pressing enter, it will open the header modification tool, and here you see the little gear. So once I set up everything I need here, like the sample rate and let's say the averages, I put them to whatever I like to have it. And somebody else, some customers asked me, okay, how did you do the header modification? And you want to be sure that he gets exactly the settings I made in the software. I can say, okay, save these settings. Once I saved them, let's say, okay, we go here and say settings for customer 1, just an example, hit enter. Now if I go on load settings from, so I sent in this file via email. Now I go to load settings from, saved settings, and reselect that one, which I sent to the customer. He has to reselect it, of course. He will end up in getting exactly the settings I did on the header modification tool. So this is really, really a nice feature to be sure to deliver the right message and the right settings for your tools in order to see everybody how you work with the tool and not making any mistakes, which could happen in RPC Pro, of course. Okay, the pin function here, we discussed about that. So pinning the windows on the left of the software. This one is to dock it again when you maximize the window, minimize, maximize, and then here is our new help, edit, and X, of course, will close the window. Any questions so far to the guide diamonds or the way we use our windows in the new RPC Connect software?
Safa, two questions have come in. The first one, will RPC Connect also be available for CRPC?
Yeah, so we will have CRPC also available. It will be similar to the ones we had in RPC Pro and CRPC Pro. So we will bring a CRPC on the market, yes.
Okay. Another question, will the presentation be available for download after the webinar?
Cody, maybe you can give a statement to that one here as well. So I think we can discuss about that.
Yeah, we are trying to determine if we're going to have an ability to post that. More to come on that. We would like to make some of it available, but in the meantime, immediately available on that website that I showed earlier, www.mts.com/RPC. There is a shorter preview video of some of the highlights that Safa has shown here amongst the other information. So in the meantime, you can certainly check that out for your colleagues, but we are looking at the possibility of being able to share these webinars as well. So more to come on that.
Okay.
And one more question.
Yep.
One more question. The graphical user interface looks very similar in design to the MPE Test Suite graphical user interface. Is this the intention so that it is easier for users to learn RPC and have continuity across MTS software?
Yeah, so this was one of our intents as well. So the problem we had with our software packages that they all look different. And of course, they should get a similar layout and everybody should get like familiar with MTS software, of course, yes.
One more question.
Yep.
Is there a link between header modification and acquisition setup?
So like the channel transformation tool, I guess, was there. So we added a lot of new functionalities here, which we cannot go into detail. But to answer this question a little bit is, so we have different functions added here. So you can create a file from the setup directly for the header modification tool. So it's called seed file, and it will have all the files available which were in your setup, depending on response or drive file, which site you select. So yes, you can have in the header modification tool, you can have a so-called seed file, and it will be having all the functionalities or all the things which your setup carries along. We can go through that into details within our next or other webinars when we plan them. Okay, anything else from your side, Paul, or from Cody? I don't know. If not, I will carry on.
Please proceed.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, the all-new RPC Connect brings along another nice feature for file naming. So the way the input file and the output files are chosen are basically the same, but we have implemented a new way of typing it in. So once you have selected your input file, in this case, it's called FinTGT, we want to have our output name. So let's have the channel extract tool for an example here. The FinTGT will give you the output of the time history. So if I use input name here, it will call FinTGT as my input name. Then I can add an identifier and add a suffix. And these three parts here are called the fully resolved name, and you can see it in live view. So let's go for an example here. I open RPC Connect, and let's say we maximize our Project Explorer, and I import some files. Let me grab any file I have here. Let's put that one in.
So if I go to the time history folder, it will of course show up here. So now this file can be, let's say, okay, go for the same example, the channel extract tool. We take the channel extract and say, okay, we select the file I currently imported. So this is my new imported file here. And what I can do now is I can use the input name here and say, okay, call it desired response 8 channels, as you see here. Then I can add anything in the identifier, like test, for instance. And if you have a quick look here on this switch I marked in blue now, if you have a look on that one, if I remove test, it will directly be seen what will the user type in. So what you can do is directly see what your file will look like. I can add the suffix as well, whatever I like to have, like webinar 1, for instance. And if I am the guy who likes really, really long names and want to be sure to tag it like the date and time should be added, I just click on this little symbol, the clock here, and it will add the time, the date, whatever is currently set up in my language settings here. So if I start the English version, it will look a little bit different. You can see as I did it right now, you can copy and paste, just grab it, put it here. So you can just choose whatever you want. And in this case, for example, there's kind of error showing me there's something invalid, which was not available in RPC Pro. So you directly get messages if something is wrong and needs to be checked or cleared. But this one will be, of course, discussed in later webinars. So, okay. Yeah, hope this one is clear to everybody. Let's go along and have a look at some other nice features. So the button behaviors in RPC Pro, they changed, and RPC Connect, they changed a lot. So what we have intended here is we have buttons with multiple behaviors. Each button, which is equipped with this little arrow, which you see here next to the button itself, will have separate multiple behaviors. You can click on the arrow to see if an option is available and choose whatever you like or benefits most. So you may ask, what is the intent behind that? Why do I need that? So one thing is, of course, if I go to any tool like this here, the channel extract tool, maybe I have some files which I want to work 2 times on that. So let's say I want to create different time histories now. Let's import another file here to have an example for you guys. Let's import that one, for instance. Let's see. If I go back to the channel extract tool, and let's say I want to have this time history here first, then I import the next time history I just right now used, say add and close. And then I can decide now if I want to take, let's say, some channels from the first time history I added or from the second time history I added. And then I'm not happy with running the tool, let's say, once. I need to discover some different features or have like separate channels getting out of these files. I can just select here run, and then once I click run, it will only run the tool and it stays open. If I click, of course, run and close, it will close the tool here in this case. So yeah, okay, let's press the button here. Let's say run. Okay, it will run the tool. Once it's finished, it's here and the tool stays open. We will definitely change the user's needs if the window is still on top, or will move behind the main window, but this is currently discussion which is going on. In this release or beta version, which I have currently installed, the window will disappear and go in the back, but it's still open. So if I want to rerun it, I can do it. If I want to close it, I can say run and close, and then it's finished, it's gone. Okay, another thing is these buttons are case sensitive. So if you are in Simulate, for instance, let's go to the Simulate stage. So if you are in Simulate, for instance, everybody knows we need to create our drive. So this is the so-called Simulate wizard, which will guide you through the software. So the first thing, of course, is you create your setup, then you set your target, etc., etc. We don't go into details here too much. But if you want to run your iterations, it might be the case that you already generated your drive. So what will happen to these buttons, if let's say generate drive is the most commonly used button you like to have here shown up, it will move to load drive, of course. So all these buttons which are having these multiple behaviors will adapt at your behaviors. So it is a nice feature added. The software is somehow thinking a little bit with you in advance using it. Okay. Another thing which comes along are the toggle buttons. So we have buttons shown up which can be toggled around. So the first thing is we have most of the time like item selections. Item selections is if I want to select the time history, for instance. But if I want to have like a file name or something else combined with a variable, I can click on this button here, and then the button will turn around to this X, which you see here, and you can select or enter a variable here. And then this hash will have direct numeric entry. So if you want to use that one in the, let's go for example, again, let's say channel extract again, because now we are all familiar with that. I use my time history. I have now switched the stage, so sorry for that. The imported file is not available. But to show you the behavior of the button, I can say, okay, the output file now, if I click on that one, he will ask me now for a variable. So if I define a variable called test drive number 1, it will call the output name of my file will be called test drive number 1 plus identifier plus X. So I can create the variable here and say, okay, create, let's say, go for stage root drive, for instance. Stage root drive would be the last drive I chose. So in this case, I have no drive created. That is why there is no naming behind it. But to get you guys an idea of what you can do later on with toggling these buttons, which we will present in several webinars as well, you can see definitely the benefit of these buttons here. Another important thing to know about is that the lock and unlock button is no longer available in RPC Connect. So instead, to copy, to grid your name position based to operations, we have enhanced experience here. So we call these new functionalities to adapt your current time history to your tool settings. We call them now quintessential tool rules, QTR. So in this case, for example, we are on the taper tool. And this little button here is called the smashing or replacing button. Once the user clicks this button, RPC Connect will try to adapt the current time history loaded in. So if I select another time history here and press this button, it will try to adapt your options to the currently set taper mode. So this one is more or less replacing the lock and unlock button, of course. However, these tools are really helping to use the software more efficiently and to let it, for the users, maybe much easier, or it is much easier to adapt your current settings to your new time history you want to work with and procedure settings. Okay, any questions, Paul, so far?
One new question came in. This was probably more for Cody. Will the software be included in the current MTS license we have, or will it be a completely new package, which we have to go as a new investment cost? Cody.
Yeah, so the software is going to be built on a new license package. It'll be so it will require a new set of physical licenses to be installed on the computer. And similarly, it is the upgrade will be is a paid upgrade for making the change. For those of you that are on a software support plan or maintenance contract, there is preferred pricing for being on a software support plan or maintenance contract. If you are not yet on a maintenance contract, there still is time to get on that and secure some better pricing for your upgrade to RPC Connect, and you can work directly with your MTS sales team members to get that. Budgetary pricing is also already available for RPC Connect, so you can also work with your sales team member to get that budgetary pricing you need as you start to plan this.
Okay, some more questions?
That's it for now. We're good.
Okay. So then the next part I want to talk about is the Project Explorer layout. So we changed this a little bit to make it more efficient to work with that one. So we thought that the time history folder is the folder which is used all the time. So it has to be the first folder here. The next thing we added is that we have a statistics folder now. So all of you guys know when you are in the test module on the test stage, you work with the statistics and you try to find, let's say, all the trend statistics, your searching and searching and searching, and between all the other files, you cannot really find your trend file. So this time, this time the trend files will just directly go into that folder, point by point into that folder, and spectral into that folder. Licenses on the limit settings and statistics you have, everything will be shown up in this statistics folder. Another thing is that the sequence is moved here to the bottom here, and the other folder is the last folder in that section. The Project Explorer itself carries the important functionalities like new workspace, new data set, import and export, and the setup you're currently using here. These functions are added to the setup, to the Project Explorer as well. So less changes, but I think benefit changes. Of course, we have new symbols added to the software. We don't need to go much into details in that, but as you know that we had in RPC Pro like some kind of hints or symbols which showed what you last time used. In RPC Connect, it is the same, but we turned the color and the symbols a little slightly different. So the last time symbols or the last time files you used will turn into more blue or invert the colors. So for instance, here you see the time history file, which will look like this, the symbol. Once you used it and it was the last time history you used, it turns into more blue. The same for the sequence or for the histograms, as you can see here. And what we changed as well is this little red dot in the Project Explorer. Let's go to the Project Explorer. So the little red dot which you had in RPC Pro showing you what is your current active data set, it changed to a darker blue section here. So current data set is darker blue and the inactive data set is light blue. Okay, another thing which is really nice to have is sorting, or you have a column reorder function. You can sort the columns in the way you like to have them. So in this case, you can just say, okay, I don't want to have, let's say, the sample rate in this column area here. I want to have it on the last column. I can just grab it and move it. You can do that whatever column you see here, which is available. But once you are not happy with, let's say, the options or the columns which RPC Pro Connect offers here, you can just click on the left corner, select the columns you like. So if you are not interested in repeats, in the dates, or in the sample rate, you just click on these options here and remove everything you're not like to work with. Let's just go and have a quick look here as we have the Project Explorer open already. So I'm just going back to model because I've imported some files there that we can have a look at. Okay, and then we maximize our Project Explorer here. And in this case, I see, okay, I have the time here. The time is interesting and important for me. I just move it here. The sample rate is not so important. I can move it to the right. I'm not happy to see repeats, triggers, description. Just click on that, say choose columns. Unselect everything, say I just want to have the name, the repeats, and let's say the time is important, and there you go. Okay, why is that important? Important it is because if I have, let's say, the window is docked, in this case, let's move it, for example, to the same place where the time history plotter is. So we put it here, so I have less space here. Less space is bad, and less space needs more efficiency of looking at my files. So if I click on that vertical splitter here, it will show me everything I have here. So if I have removed my columns here and have only the columns which are important for me in that Project Explorer, I can have an efficient view on looking at them while clicking on this slider here or while just choosing the columns I'm interested in. Okay, I think I got a slide before I talked about that. I need to talk about that slide in advance. So I showed you already the splitter here, the splitter bars, we call them. So you can shift them as the way you want. Once you click on them, you say, okay, it's an efficient way, effective way of looking at my files. So the left part, for instance, here of the Project Explorer is only important if I want to choose in which folder I want to work with. So in this case, I click on time histories. Now I will check my time histories, and it is not important anymore to see this page. I click on that splitter, the part will shift to the left, and I have the full view of looking at my files. These splitters are not only available as in this part shown here from left to right to close it. We have it also available in different tools to maximize the view you look at. A common example here is, let's say, a tool is, for example, header modification has a lot of information in. So let's try to get a file which has a lot of channels in. Maybe I import one first. Let me check. Let's go and import one of them first. Now I need to find a file. Let's import all of them. Some of the files will definitely carry, let's say, posts, so which they will carry some channels. Let's say. Let's check here if I find a channel, a signal which has some more channels here. Now I have to be lucky now. Okay, I'm not lucky. Oh, okay, there you go. So now we got a time history which has a lot of channels here. And the first thing I have is, okay, I choose my input and output file. So here you see these little splitters. These splitters enables me to close or collapse and uncollapse the view I have. So once I decided for my file, it's not necessary to have it open anymore. So I click on that one, it will just collapse and uncollapse the input-output section. The same for the file properties. If I set my sample rate to 409.6, for instance, and say, okay, the rest is fine, I don't have to look at this anymore. I click on that, and now I get more the chance to have a look at the channels much better and effective. Of course, we can now, every window can be extended, so this is nothing we have to mention. But this is the way of how you can work more efficient with the software, having a look at your files. Okay, another thing we implemented here into RPC Connect is that we have an overview which summarizes what the folder content is. So in this case, for instance, if you are on a project, you can say, you just click on the project, you get a summary view. The summary view tells you, in this case, for instance, we have like 64 time histories, we have 12 statistics. So with that, you can just have a quick look on how many files are in your project currently running and if there's any data content in. So it's a nice feature, nice to have, let's see. Okay. The last thing I want to talk about is the plotter functionality. So the plotter functionality changed in RPC Connect as well. So in RPC Connect Pro, you were only able to send your files to the active plotter. So if you had an active plotter and you put all your files in, it was really, really hard to say, okay, I want to keep that window and open another time history plotter, for instance. So now we implemented something like adding a new plotter or a custom plotter. There's, as far as I know, no limitation to that. And let's give it a try and see what we can do with our files here. So for instance, I have now all the files uploaded or imported in that section here, and I want to compare, let's say, drive file 17. Let's grab that one and put that one out. This is important for me. I put it here on the middle and tap it here. So I want to have compared these files with each other. Now a double click will put every file into that. I put some settings here. I like to compare these files, for example, and now I want to keep that one because I need that for another analysis or another propose. Let's say I want to compare now 3 different files. Now I go to send to plotter. I can send to active or last used plotter. I can send the plotter into editor mode, of course, to cut it, to set regions, whatever. I can go for a new plotter or, of course, a custom plotter. Let's say I call it like webinar 1 plotter. Say, okay, use these settings. It will open a webinar 1 plotter here. The file is sent there, and the next double clicks will send the files to compare into that setting. So I tap that one here as well, again. So now I have my currently compared files, comparing it to the old ones, and I have still my same plotters open to work with. So this is an efficient way of working with my new time history plotters. You can do that, of course, with matrix plotters and other plotters as well. Okay, any questions so far?
No new questions.
No new questions, so sounds good. This is all I have to say for the first webinar for the graphical user interface. I hope we could encourage you to have a look at the next webinars which you can join, and I appreciate your time joining these webinars here. So thanks for that. Thanks for your time.
Again, this is Cody. I would also like to echo Safa's sentiment. We appreciate you guys taking your time here to learn more about RPC Connect. We're excited about the direction that we're going, and we're excited to be able to share that with you guys. And we'll look forward to touching base again soon. For those of you that were planning to attend the RPC users group that we had planned for March, we're hopeful to get that rescheduled and have an opportunity to also visit face to face as we get past the COVID events that are currently disrupting each of our lives. I'd like to thank everybody again for the time to log in, and we'll look forward to touching base again soon with you.